Simply Tammy.
It's a blessing that I'm here, I'm alive. No, I never ever have to cry, cause it's something I know will always work for me on my side. Not a thing I even have to fight, all things work together for my good. Life speaks if you listen, it might be sound. Watch the love come alive. Sharing the truth that inspires. Sharing the truth that inspires. Sharing the truth that inspires. All things work together for my good. Life speaks if you listen, it might be sound. Watch the joy come alive. Watch the joy. Sharing the truth that inspires.
Inspired to love. Inspired to grow. Inspired to heal. Inspired to live. Simply Tammy.
Good evening. It is Simply Tammy, affectionately known as Simply Tammy. I'm Tammy Carpenter, back again for another episode of Women Who Win. So thank you guys for joining us. As always, I ask when you join, go ahead and jump in the comments. Tell me who you are, where you're joining from, and please share the video. If you are watching us on Facebook from the Simply Tammy page, go ahead and like and follow the page so that anytime I'm live, you'll know. I'm here every week, with the exception of the months that I take off. I do have an on and off schedule, but if you stay connected, you'll know exactly when I'm going live and who my guests will be. And if you are watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. Even if you're not watching me on YouTube, go out to YouTube and subscribe. I need more subscribers on my YouTube channel. So this is the platform where we share truth that inspires. I love, love, love these moments on a weekly basis to bring some amazing women before you that have some amazing stories, challenges, and triumphs that they're willing to come to this platform in a place of transparency and let you know how you too can conquer, because there is a common thread in all of us. Your story may not be their story, but there's a common thread in you that whatever tried to stop you, you can move past it and achieve the life God has for you. So I'm very, very excited about my guest this week. As you know, I mentioned last week, I have a theme for this month where I'm inviting people that I've known for a while. I've been saying it's a blast from my past while empowering my present. So I have some amazing women that have known me from childhood that are doing some amazing things, and I want to introduce you to them. So I am going to go ahead and read the bio of my guest tonight as I bring up her picture. It is my beautiful friend and sister, Dr. Raphael Hughes. And her bio reads, Reverend Dr. Raphael E. Green Hughes is a native of Greenville, South Carolina. Dr. Hughes's formal education journey began at Salem College, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology as well as a Master in Education in Language and Literacy. She later earned a Master in Education in Educational Leadership from High Point University. She is a principal at South Fork Elementary School in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and has been employed in the Winston-Salem Forsyth County school system for 22 years. As the Lord ministered to her heart, Dr. Hughes answered the call to ministry and completed her ministry preparation work at APET School of Theology by obtaining a Master of Divinity and Doctor of Ministry with a specialization in Biblical Studies. Soon after graduation, she was licensed to preach by Bishop Sir Walter Mack Jr., pastor of Union Baptist Church, and was ordained by the Rowan Baptist Association in 2016. She faithfully serves as an associate minister at Union Baptist, where she leads the Christian Education Department. She also is the co-founder of a nonprofit agency, Worship Without Walls. Dr. Hughes believes in the impact of doing ministry outside of the walls and has been involved in evangelism efforts through the Global United Fellowship, as well as the organization of a citywide Bible study initiative, Bible Study in the City. Dr. Hughes encourages and exemplifies living victoriously in the face of adversity and believes that through the power of prayer and application of the word, you are armed and dangerous. God gifted her with a wonderful husband, Reverend Alvin Hughes, and 6 beautiful children, Cameron, Jamel, Xavier, Alvin Jr., Chance, and Destiny. So without further ado, let me shift our technology around here a little bit. Hello, hello,
Hello, good
hello.
evening.
Good evening, good evening. So, okay. I like to always acknowledge the people that have said hello to us in the comments. So we have my sister Tramika Johnson that was with us last week. She's here from Charleston. Daniela Hairston, thank you for joining us.
All
Welcome,
right.
welcome. And I know we had this viewer last week from YouTube, PW. I'm not sure who you are, but thank you so much for joining us. I wonder if that my sister Fenora. I don't know. We'll find out. But so Dr. Hughes,
Yes,
as you guys may have heard, she's a friend and sister. She and I went to high school together, so I have known her for well over 20 years. We've been out of high school longer than we probably look like we have.
that's right, we have.
God has kept us, and we're
That's
grateful.
good.
But and of course, have been connected on social media for several years, and was able to do some ministry together a few years ago. So I'm so very grateful that you were able to say yes tonight to join me on this platform, so that the people can learn more about who you are and what you're doing, and just how wonderful you are. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to jump right into a post, something I saw you post today that's really kind of exciting and intimidating. I would say to a lot of people right now. You took your first vaccination shot today for COVID-19.
That's
So,
right.
so talk to us a little bit about what made you say yes to that, because you have a lot of people who are still on the fence or saying we're not going to do it. So, talk to us about why you stepped up for that.
Right. So I actually received an opportunity through our school district. We have several individuals who meet the criteria to get the vaccine. And part of that criteria is individuals who have direct access to sick children. So we have what's called a COVID coordinator, our first responders, and then our holding room support individuals. And myself and my assistant principal, who's actually on tonight, so glad to see you, Ms. Hairston. Um, the two of us often are individuals who are going to support teachers in checking temperatures and holding sick children until they can be picked up by parents. And so when I got the call, it was a surprise. It happened this week. And I got the call. Like you said, like everyone else, I just began reading the information. I wanted to make sure that I was informed about what's going into my body. And it is literally a faith walk. That is a hashtag that I use. And I
Yeah.
mean that. And I'm sure we'll get into more of this as we talk this evening. But what I have found in my life is as you continue to grow in grace and grow in faith, your faith walk changes. So it's
Yes.
one thing to say, I'm walking by faith, but it's another thing to experience blind faith where you can't see, you can't feel. The only thing that you have is your full reliance on God. And I would
Mm-hmm.
say that today was another one of those times. So part of me said, praise God, thank God for this opportunity. And the other part of me said, hit the door and run. But I take leadership very seriously. I take the responsibility of leading a school, and I'm very accountable to my school community, the community around me. As a ministry leader, I hold myself very accountable. And so in that, I have to lead in those things as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sat in that chair and said a little prayer and
Mm-hmm.
asked God to cover me. And I'm very excited to have had that opportunity.
Yes, yes. So, when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to ask her about that tonight
Yes.
when we get on the call. So I know that you have been as your bios reads, you are the principal, and that's a recent promotion.
Yes.
So how has it been leading in that capacity, especially during the pandemic? Did the promotion happen before the pandemic? Did you have some regular time, or has it all been pandemic time?
Now, I love that question. That is a wonderful question. And yes, in the midst of a pandemic, I was promoted. And that in itself is a whole story. That's a whole story because as I think about it, with so many people losing jobs and opportunities shifting, and people losing hope, and it being such a dark situation, in the midst of that, God saw fit to place me in a role that I can see his hand moving in my life and how he has prepared me for over time. And I said, only my God has that kind of sense of humor to say, okay, what you've been praying for, I'm answering it right now in the midst of this.
Wow.
And so I was promoted to the role in May. And in our school district, as you know, much of the shutdown happened in March. I was an assistant principal at a high school. And so we were maneuvering the at-home virtual situation. And I got the job in May. So I made a shift mid-year.
Wow.
Because we were ending things at the high school level and bringing school to a close. So I walked into a new school opportunity, new staff, had to finish the school year, and then ramp up for the upcoming year.
Wow.
So it has definitely, it's definitely been a journey. But I just see God's hand in it because it's been a beautiful journey. It's been a beautiful journey. I posted something a while back, and in the midst of a pandemic, when people are truly having a hard time with the shift and what their new normal might be, I said, this is a great time, and especially speaking for women, this is a great time for innovation. It's a great time for creativity. It's a great time for those like myself and like you who think way out of the box. We're in our comfort zone right now because we can create and make and innovate. And I just think about so many powerful women who have a knack for that. So this is a great season to be able to think out of the box. And much of the leadership responsibilities that I have right now, there is no handbook for running a school in a pandemic.
Right.
The literature about virtual education at the elementary level is brand new. And so much of what we're doing, it's new. It's a great testing. Yeah, it's a great testing ground for creativity, and that is certainly the way I have approached it. I'm really proud to say I have a great co-leader with me, Ms. Hairston, and we have a ball making up new stuff and going with it.
So I see in your bio you've been in education for 22 years. So was it your goal when you started 22 years ago to end up in administration, or did you just have a knack and desire for teaching? What led you to that path and the desire to move forward the way you have?
Right. So it actually was not my goal to be an educator.
Okay.
It was my goal. I was a psychology and sociology double major. And it was my goal to nurture people, to help people. I really thought that I would go a very clinical route. And I got an opportunity. I was offered an opportunity to apply at an alternative school. And in that alternative school program, the way it was presented to me was, we have some students who have social and emotional needs. They need support, they need nurturing, they need love. It spoke to every part of my personality. And I didn't really think about the teacher part of it until I got in it. And I was bit by the bug. I loved it. I loved it immediately. It fit me, and I actually enrolled in the language and literacy program that same year. I wanted to know more. What I always tell people is working in an alternative learning environment was the gift that kept on giving to me. Because it has formed and created my philosophy about educating all children. Right now, part of our theme at South Fork Elementary is to catch the wave. And we want to make sure we're empowering and educating learners in every class, every single day, every scholar. So every scholar, every day, in every classroom.
Mhm.
And as you know, learners come with all kinds of backgrounds, personalities, social economic needs. We have haves, we have have-nots,
Mhm.
ethnic backgrounds. And the exciting thing about that for me is being able to use that knowledge base, that no matter what the need is, I'm looking for the root under that. And I
Mhm.
want to make sure that we're addressing that.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was formed, the can-do attitude, the I can learn, the looking at abilities as opposed to disabilities. All of that came from my being thrust into alternative education. I stayed there for 4 years, and it shaped me. It shaped me forever.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's probably the area that a lot of people often run away from,
Correct.
because of the challenges that are in there. But you embraced it and found further purpose from that. So that is amazing. So as you are growing in the educational field,
Mhm.
as I was reading your bio, I'm like, I know that you have four biological children and now are part of a blended family we'll talk about later. But how are you all of this education, like it was like you were in school a lot. I'm like, you're
Yes.
married
Yes.
with children and then experience divorce. How, oftentimes if catastrophe is going on over here, it trickles into other areas of our life. So how were you maintaining this track of moving forward while you were still having to parent, be a wife,
Yeah.
dealing with later being a divorcee?
Right.
Talk to us about that process.
I'm glad to. Survival. If I had to describe it in one word, I would
Okay.
say survival. My father raised us with an understanding, and my mother raised us with an understanding of the word. And I truly believe that an idle mind is the devil's playground. When you allow yourself to be stagnant when you're going through something, it breeds an opportunity to plant seeds of doubt, of fear, of loss, of grief, of despair, depression. So when you don't have something positive on your mind, then your mind is open for all those negative seeds. So with that mindset, I had two choices. As you said, I went through a divorce situation when my youngest child was 3 months old. I had four children, and
Mm.
I had a decision. Either I was going to survive or I was going to die. And it may not have been a physical death, but I'm talking about the literal, emotional, psychological ending of me.
Mm-hmm.
And all I could hear at times was, I shall live and not die. I shall live and not die. I stood on Philippians 4 and 6 for probably about 6 years. Be anxious for nothing. And even times when I couldn't get the whole scripture out of my mouth, I could say, be anxious for nothing. And so, what I did in that, where God led me, I have always been a studious person. I love to read, I love, information. And it was just one portion of information seeking after another. The other thing that happened to me is in that season with the departure, I left my marriage. And with that departure, I was called into ministry. And I'm like, okay, God, who wants to hear from this divorced woman who feels like right now she is a wreck? I can remember going to my pastor, and I didn't even know how he was going to receive what I had to say, but he basically let me know that he knew. And he said, I want you to go to school. I want you to be equipped. He said, in this new season of believers, you have to be equipped. You've got to be educated. And so at a time when I actually was thinking that I was going to pursue an administrative direction, I was called into ministry and I went and pursued a master's of divinity. It didn't appear to match any other thing in my life in that moment. And I thought, God, what is this for? Preparation. So we pray for things, but we don't think about what that journey looks like of preparation. So when you look at my bio and you see all this education, it was survival and it was preparation. I didn't know where God was taking me, but I trust him. I
Mhm.
trust him. That's my faith walk. That's why that hashtag means so much to me, because that has been my life journey. Like Forrest Gump, it wasn't a box of roses or a box of chocolates. It was
Right.
it was ugly sometimes. But he kept me, and he
Mhm.
kept my mind. He kept my mind, and he kept my mind on something. So
Mhm.
I encourage people, when you're going through something, that's why the word reminds us to keep our minds stayed on him, so that
Mhm.
we don't have our minds on junk. And fill
Yes.
your head with something, fill your
Yes.
head with something positive. So that's kind of how that occurred.
Mhm.
And in the midst of all of that, I was racking up degrees,
Mhm.
because I was super focused.
Mhm.
And there's some other shifts in my life that later happened, but the education was happening in the midst of all of this. Rearing children, being single, staying single for a significant amount of time. I was single for almost 7 years.
Mhm.
And then tripping up on my husband, literally.
Okay, we'll get to that
Right.
in a moment. I want to put a pin right here and ask a question, because oftentimes, as you were saying, um, I know you mentioned when we were talking in our pre, you were a young mother. So you had your first child as a young adult woman,
Yes.
and then you, divorced with four children. As you are experiencing these things that are shaping you, teaching you, and you are shaping these young lives, who was your tribe? Who was surrounding you? Who was in your ear to help keep you encouraged, to help keep you from, not throwing up a box of diapers and just walking away from it all?
Yes. So I joke because I have a child. One of my children says this about being an introverted extrovert. so, so I'm definitely a people person, but I have always been very limited in my circle. And so I grew up with this family arrangement of my parents, my sisters, and my cousins, who I kind of call my sister brother cousins because
Mhm.
we grew up so closely. So really, it was my family that
Mhm.
helped to keep me grounded. I have an excellent example in my mother and father, who have been married for 46 years. I have, my grandparents who have been married, I think, for 54 years, and are both alive. My grandfather celebrated his 90th birthday today. Happy birthday, Papa. So I have that positive energy speaking into me,
Mhm.
and always speaking the word in my ear. And so
Mhm.
I've always really limited myself in who I'm listening to. And it's not that I don't have friends, I have a good friend network, but what carried me through is where I'm rooted. So home
Mhm.
is where I'm rooted.
Yeah.
So my family, and just really staying in the word and hearing, what they had to say to me.
Okay. So after being single for 7 years, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
um, and you said you tripped up, so to speak, on your husband, um,
Right.
how did you know that you were ready to enter into another marriage if you had walked away from the first one?
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't know that. In fact, I probably initially rejected the notion. And this is why I believe that as women, we truly have to trust God more than we trust ourselves, because we don't know what's good for us, and we don't know who we will become in the future. He equips us for where we're going. Oftentimes, we make selections for where we are. And
Mhm.
if you believe that God has greater for you, you don't want to pick based on where you are.
Exactly.
So my husband, the two of us sang on the worship team at our church. And the reason why I say tripped up on him, because we stood beside each other for years and never entertained the notion of dating or anything. And in fact, our first outing was supposed to just be that kind of an outing amongst friends. And we went from that outing amongst friends to really spending a lot of time, in communication with each other, talking. We
Mhm.
both write. We're both writers. So we would do poetic expressions to one another. And we kind of came to a place that we both questioned, okay, wait, what is this? This feels like something more. And we did something that I'd never done in my life as it relates to dating. And again, it's God along this journey. We fasted. We fasted and prayed for a week to make some decisions about what is this, because we both had a question.
Mhm.
And from there, God opened my heart, because I have to say that I did have a difficult transition, and I never rejected it, but the readiness couldn't come from me. There was too much baggage, there was too much damage. And we oftentimes will take that into another situation. We don't mean to,
Yeah.
but we stay stuck in our life because we take our old stuff into our new thing.
Mhm.
And if God's going to do a new thing in me, I don't want to take the old stuff that didn't work into this new thing.
Mhm.
So there's actually a picture of us out there. It was an engagement photo, but it's my favorite picture of us praying, because part of our dating situation was prayer.
Mhm.
He prayed for me on the telephone every night. And I would joke with him and say, that was like my sleep tonic to put me to sleep, his prayer.
Mhm.
He would pray, we would say good night, and I would have a good night's rest after we hung up the telephone. And
Mhm.
so I share all of that to just say that, once again, if I had relied on my own decision making, I would have missed him. I
Mhm.
wouldn't have recognized that he was the one that God sent. God had to prepare my heart for him and
Mhm.
his heart for me. And
Right.
and I truly believe that he did.
That is beautiful. You know, sounds like, the perfect love story. But I like that you said that we enter into things with baggage. We try to enter into new things, still carrying the old baggage. So talk a little bit about how you were able to release some of your previous baggage um, to enter this as a whole woman, or was it a continual process even after you said I do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, in all transparency, that it is a continual process. I do see life as a journey, and when we're real with ourselves, we're always learning more about who we are, and then it changes. I'm 45, and with this 45th birthday, I am not the same Raphael that I was at my 40th birthday or my 25th birthday. But we have to be real with ourselves that we're ever changing. So, emptying myself of the baggage, I like to describe it as peeling off the layers of an onion,
Mm-hmm.
because every time you think you've gotten to a place, there's more. So when if you sit and try to peel an onion, you are peeling and unpeeling. There's always another layer, another layer. Um, I wanted to be healed. I wanted to be fully restored. I didn't want to bring my damage and inflict somebody else with my stuff.
Right.
So I left my marriage hurt and very disappointed, because all I ever knew was the fairy tale. The people in my family stay together. I felt like a disappointment to my family. I'm a believer, and sometimes we as women of faith, we get stuck in bad situations because we want to package it right. I had I went through all of that.
Mhm.
We wanted to look good.
That was
I'm a
good.
church girl. Always been a
Yeah.
church girl. I want
Yeah.
that thing to look good. Um, and then I had to deal with my identity. And I realized I wasn't really sure who I was, because I had gone from being someone's mother to
Mhm.
being someone's wife to now being a wife with all these children. And then I had taken in a lot of negative messages in that particular situation, and I lost me.
Mhm.
So I had to really get naked before the Lord, and it was a journey. That's why I didn't do a lot of dating, because it just didn't work.
Mhm.
I wasn't ready for that. So
Mhm.
I had to deal with me. I spent a lot of alone time. Um,
Mhm.
I spent a lot of time crying. I spent a lot of time reading. I spent a lot of time studying,
Yeah.
and I allowed God to heal me. So when I was at a place that I felt that he had healed me and I could receive love from someone. And that's an important component. We miss out because our heart rejects what's good for us.
Mm.
When
My,
your
my,
heart
my.
rejects what's good for you, you want to stay in what's comfortable.
Exactly.
You don't want to open the door to something that you don't recognize. And imagine this, if you've been treated poorly, if you've been in an abusive relationship, if
Mhm.
you've been abusive towards yourself, hadn't treated yourself well, and
Mhm.
now something good comes, it's foreign to you. And so what
Absolutely.
do? I don't want that because it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And so I knew I wanted more and I wanted better. So I had to do it a different way. And I
Yeah.
had to allow God to minister to my heart. And so all that time of the study of the ministry program that I was in that kept me studying, time in the Word, relationships and friendships that I forged in that study time of others who were doing what was doing, and that nurtured that person that I was becoming, the minister that I was then becoming that I didn't know I was becoming.
Mhm.
So it nurtured my becoming. So I would just say healing is what it
Yeah.
required. Healing.
So entering into this new relationship also threw you into a blended family, as you said, like your own modern day Brady Bunch.
That's
So
right.
how was it adjusting to not only new love, new relationship, but a new family dynamic?
It is ever changing. We are still adjusting because the age range of our children is so intriguing. My oldest child is 25 years old. So I have
Mhm.
25, I have a 22-year-old, and we have four in the house, 17, soon to be 18, 16 years old, and two 14-year-olds. Now,
Mm.
the children that we have in the house now, they were playmates. So they knew each other in church.
Mhm.
They had become friends. They had two of them had an elementary experience together. So all these things were at play before we ever had a relationship.
Mhm.
And I always tell people our children absolutely love each other. They're like peas in a pod, as if they are biologically tied. And if anybody wants to try to say that they are not siblings, like that, oh, that's your hat. We don't do half. We don't do step.
Right.
We don't do any of that. Brothers and sisters. And if you try to say anything different, you will get the side eye from them. um, so that helps the adjustment a great deal because they love being together. My bonus sons are with us, a part of the time. So we have joint custody with our previous exes. And so our four children who live at home spend the primary amount of time here in the house with us.
Mhm.
So what that feels like as a mother is I'm mom, they're my children. I love them. They love me back. We take care of each other like any other family. We have our highs, we have our lows. Right now, there's a whole lot of focus on getting people grown and off to college. So they're
Mhm.
very, very active teenagers. And there's really no time to separate who's who because we're in
Right.
this house together raising a family. Um,
Exactly.
I would say that in a blended family, the dynamic that comes up that you do have to face is you have these other family partners that have to be part of the unit, and you
Mhm.
have to embrace that. So there is another father that's involved, there is another mother that's involved. We respect the love of the other parents that are involved in our family unit, and we all do our best to try to make sure there's communication.
That's
And
beautiful.
it just, it takes time. It takes time,
Yeah.
but we have a good system that's working for us.
So, as you are, adjusting to family dynamics, and being promoted and advancing in your career, as you mentioned earlier, you answered the call to ministry, which required more education, but then later was licensed and ordained. So, how did that process add another layer to who Raphael was and who she was becoming?
Wow, that is a great question. So the search and discovery for learning more in the Word, when you're in a seminary program, what you end up learning is how much you will never know. The more you dig into the things of Christ, you understand the mystery that you can never, ever fully reveal. And it keeps you thirsty. It makes you hungry. It makes you, want to dig more and find out more. And it makes you evolve. As a woman in ministry, and I had an interesting journey because many of the people that I was in a doctorate of ministry program were males, many of them pastors, many of them older. So as a woman in ministry, you understand the importance of having to be able to stand on the word. You have to be able to defend the word. You can't play with it because people oftentimes find some difficulty. There's a lot of traditionalism that happens in ministry. And so if you're going to be a woman preacher, like many other things, you need to be a learned female preacher. You need to be someone who spends time with God and spends time in the Word. So I would say that transition in the ministry program, what it caused in me is a fire, burning desire to know more about God, to be closer to God. It helped me to trust Him more. It helped me with the faith walk. It helped me understand that our life is a journey. It equipped me, and I could start to see my life coming, full circle, how all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord. I could really see that happen in my life. And I would look in the mirror and feel more solid. I would look in the mirror and like what I saw. And that was hard for me because I had gone through so much that it wasn't always a pretty sight. I taught this women's Bible study, and I gave an activity, and I said, get naked before the Lord, literally and physically naked. Stand there in the mirror. Don't pull yourself apart. Don't look at the dimples, the wrinkles, and all these things. Just be there in His presence and love yourself in the way that He loves you. Because He looks at us through rose-colored glasses. He sees how beautiful we are because He knows who He created us to be. He sees us as precious, and we often miss the mark on that. So that journey and spending all that time in the Word, that's what it did for me. It equipped me to be able to love me and to talk to others about how they can love themselves, and not be disappointed by where your life might have taken a bend or a turn or gone wrong and all these things that you might want to feel. I am not, in fact, I told you I'm an open book. I am not ashamed of one part of my journey because every bit of it has created me to be who I am becoming. Because as long as I'm alive, I'm still becoming. So there's more. There's more that He wants to do. And so that process, that's what it did for me. It just, my study time and my work ethic around learning, it nurtured that.
Yeah, I love how you said that you're not ashamed of any part of your story. I think that is one of the things that I've tried to echo anytime that I'm, talking to, especially younger women, because we hit some bumps along the road that didn't look anything like the lives we planned for ourselves when we were younger. Right. But to be on the other side, if you just keep going, if you just keep holding to God's unchanging hand, if you just keep trusting Him, as you said, if you just keep along this faith walk, the life He has prepared for you really is beautiful and better than anything you ever could have planned or imagined. But it's getting past those places that seem to be rough.
Right.
You and your husband are raising 4 teenagers, and things are so very different now than when we were teenagers, with all of the access, social media, the bullying, the influences that they have that sometimes scream louder than the values that you instill in them. What are some things that you guys implement to stay solid as parents, parenting teenagers in this day and time, and then with the pandemic added on top of it? So what are some things that you guys have had to do to solidify your standards in your home?
Right. So we live the example. I think oftentimes as parents, it's difficult for individuals when you have this double life.
Mm.
That mentality of, do as I say, not as I do. That doesn't work. And it especially doesn't work for today's young people because they're information seekers, everything's at their hands, and they have questions and they're going to dig for answers. And so the first thing that we do is we live the life in front of them. So the example, my prayer is that the example that we have set for them, that they will have no choice but to depart from it. So one part of that has been the aspiration for education and sound knowledge. And I tell my children, if I can go to school and get degrees in the midst of all these things that we talked about, you have absolutely no excuse. You cannot quit. You cannot stop. You have to go get it. And
Right.
so I've left them with very few excuses because for everything that they try to present, I have a story that I can share. Remember that time that
Yes.
uh, um, the other part of that is, of course, our biblical foundation. And we don't slam our children with the word, we just exemplify what that looks like, offering grace,
Mhm.
loving hard, talking to them about faith, encouraging them, not giving up on them, being real, being
Mhm.
real. So I think there's one thing when you can teach and talk scripture and you can talk Bible, but it's a whole nother thing when you live Bible. And when
Yes.
you live Bible with a young person, it resonates with them.
Mhm.
So I'm grateful to God that I do have teenagers, but I also have two young adult men who will come to me and ask questions, and they have their own inquisitive thoughts, and we can talk through some things. And I truly believe it's because of living that life. I've been my authentic self with my
Mhm.
children and continue to be that. I live my truth with my children, and
That
so
is funny.
when the world wants to pull your child a different way, if you just keep living the life in front of them and being real, they have an example that they can fall back to, even when the world is saying something else. I
Yes.
think I think that's important.
So, in the midst of, parenting teenagers, being a wife, being an administrator, a minister over the Christian education department, what does it look like to have some Raphael time?
Oh,
and,
I'm glad. Yes. So I want to speak on that because one of the things that I was thinking about is when people hear all of that stuff,
Mhm.
they think super mom or superwoman. And I have been delivered from the superwoman complex. I have put that down. I am not she is not me. I am real. I
Yes.
am working to create some absolute life balance because I'm getting older and I want to be able to enjoy every day that God gives me. And so I am in a phase of my life when I need a nap, I take a nap. When I need relaxation, I'm going to relax. And what that looks like, sometimes that might be going to get my nails done. Sometimes that might be just finding a quiet place to just be and think. Sometimes that might be a massage, a walk. What's a constant for me is writing poetry. So
Mm.
I sit and I write. That's my love. That's my passion. But no matter what you love to do, you have to have some time for you. So
Mhm.
I know balancing all of those things sounds like a marathon feat. I take turns with that balance. There are times when I have to leave work because I call it the mommy taxi cab. And there are times when I'm running the mommy taxi cab, and when my children need me, I have to put work to the side
Mhm.
because we've got all this virtual stuff. Sometimes I'm driving to pick somebody up, and I've got my earbuds in my ear listening to a meeting. So
Yes.
yeah, so what that looks like is taking time away from all of it. I step
Mhm.
away and get some quiet from the kids, and thank God they're old enough that they can handle that. They
Mhm.
have their space and they do their thing, and I go and I do mine. So
Mhm.
it's important to have a balance to create some time for you.
Yes.
And I have grown into that after some, bumps and lumps. I have learned the importance of that. And I definitely spend time just relaxing and taking time for me.
Yes. So I've heard you say a few times tonight that one of your passions is writing and you love poetry and writing poetry. Now, is that just for your personal time? You know, this is my outlet, or is there something, or will there be public projects that may be published in the future?
God gave you that question. Yes, there will be public projects.
Okay.
I spent some time doing spoken word under the name New Journey, in New Journey.
Mm,
And I was literally on a new journey in my life. And what that time did for me, it allowed me to be able to share my words. My words have been very private my whole life, books and journals full since childhood of my writing.
wow.
And so between that and beginning to see what that writing had themes, and then it became collections. I do have some books. I have some material that I'm looking forward to releasing. I
Mhm.
haven't birthed it yet. Um, every time I think I'm finished, there's a little bit more to write, but that is definitely coming. That is
Yeah.
coming this year. Um,
Yeah.
that is definitely coming this year. And
Yeah.
so I'm excited that you asked me that question.
So, if people want to connect with you, follow you, stay in contact, know when this published work is coming out, how
Yeah.
do they get in contact with you? Is it, primarily social media, or are there other outlets that they can follow or connect with you?
Sure. So it's primarily social media.
Okay.
However, I don't mind sharing my email address because I do communicate, and it's actually just my name. It's Dr. Raphael Hughes at gmail.com. You can look me up on Facebook and Instagram. It's under my name. Also, you can be in connection with us through Worship Without Walls, which you can access on Facebook.
Okay. So there's a Facebook page for Worship Without Walls as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so as we get ready to wrap up, I always like to ask my guests, on top of all of the amazing jewels that you've already shared, if you had to leave some words of encouragement, inspiration, or motivation, for the women that are watching and or that will watch in the replay,
Yes.
and as we're preparing that, I'm going to go ahead and put this banner up. If you are watching, I have my website scrolling across the bottom of the screen because that's the way that you can stay connected to this platform
Awesome.
and know who my future guests will be and what other things that we have coming up, because there's some other things that we are planning. So, would you leave some words of encouragement and inspiration for those that will see this video or those that are watching?
Yes. Um, First, I want to say I'm just so grateful to you as sister and friend for this wonderful platform and opportunity. And I pray God's blessings over your work. Um, I have two words that I want to leave in a way of inspiration, and that is hit go. Hit
Mm,
go.
I like
Um,
that.
there are a lot of people who have not had the opportunity to realize their full potential, but
Mhm.
you are still here. And if something is burning in your heart that God has called you to do, or He has pricked your imagination, or He has put a thought that you just can't get rid of, or any of those things, you lay down at night and you wake up with it on your mind, it's been there a long time, just hit go. As soon as you start walking, He will equip you and He will do the rest. My life has been a journey. And the only thing that I can say to myself right now is to continue to hit go,
Yeah.
because He takes you where He wants you to be, but you have to be on the move. If you allow yourself to be stagnant, you can stand there and you can waste precious time. So if
Mhm.
this pandemic has taught us nothing else, we don't know the moment, the day, or the time when we're going to leave here. So because He's given us all breath and life, that means there's more work for us to do. So I just encourage you, wherever you are, in whatever situation you're in, just hit, go. Trust God, He'll do the rest.
Yes, I like that. I like that. I had a very similar conversation with a friend today. Because I think all of us have just heard about an unusual amount of death. Really since the pandemic last year, and it seems like it's trickled over into this year, and it's not all COVID, but she was telling her words were, I feel anxious, and I'm like, the only thing that I have for you is to breathe and pray and live, because
Right,
we don't know. We can take some deep breaths to try to calm down. You
right.
know, take the anxiety to God in prayer, but we all have an appointed time, and we don't know when that is. So
That's right.
in the meantime,
In the
we need
meantime,
to
live.
live. Yeah, so I like the way that you phrased it, hit go. Yeah, because we definitely want to meet him having done everything that he put us here to do. And oftentimes we are the obstacle that's in our own way.
That's
So yeah, if you hit go, you can't really press go and the brakes at the same time. So,
that's right.
so go with the gas pedal.
That's
I
right.
like that. So
Good.
thank you so, so much
Thank
for joining me tonight. This has been amazing. I enjoyed this time with you, and just enjoyed still being connected with you over all of these years, from high school until now, and to just
Amen.
be able to see and witness all of the great things that you have done and the lives that you are touching, and even what's ahead for you. So continued success to you in all of your endeavors.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to ask you just to hang out with me for a few seconds
Of
in the
course.
studio as we say goodnight. So thank you guys for joining us again. This week is actually a special week. I have 2 interviews this week, and I'll tell you tomorrow night why I had 2 interviews. So you got to come back tomorrow night. You'll see, you probably have already seen the advertisement for who my guest is tomorrow night. So same time, 8:30 p.m., same location. So hopefully you can join me, or you can catch the replay. And if you do catch the replay, go ahead in the comments and hashtag replay, and you can still comment on all of the things that Dr. Hughes said to inspire you, because it's always encouraging to see how your words are touching the lives of others. But until then, remember that God has a plan for your life. In my words, my mantra for life is that life speaks. There is something that God is preparing you for, even in the darkest moments of your journey. So, in Dr. Hughes's words, it's a faith walk, hit go, trust Him, but know that on the other side of whatever you're facing right now, there really is a beautiful life awaiting
Amen.
for you. So, good night,
Good
and thank
night.
you for watching.